You're going to kick us off with some competition for Airbus and Boeing.
Yes, looks that way. Canada's Bombardier is going up against the two aircraft giants. It wants to grab a slice of the profitable smaller jet sector that they do so well in and completely dominate at the moment. Well, this follows a successful test flight of their new CS-100 jet on Monday, as Luke Schrago now reports.
Making its maiden flight with barely a whisper, Canadian manufacturer Bombardier's CS-100 takes to the skies.
It's the biggest plane ever conceived and assembled in Canada. This is a truly historic moment.
Until now, Bombardier had centred on designing trains and smaller regional aircraft. It poured $3.5 billion into developing the CS-100 over 10 years, the industry's first new medium-haul airliner to come off the drawing board in decades. Along with a larger model, the CS-300, it's set to go into direct competition with similar lines from both Boeing and Airbus. Those manufacturers have been updating existing designs to keep up with innovations Bombardier's incorporated. Lighter composite materials and quieter, more efficient engines give it an advantage in fuel costs of up to 20%.
With the C-Series, we're trying to compete with Airbus's A319 and Boeing's 737-500. Those two planes have been around for years, and now they have new versions with new engines. It's hard to compete with them, as we had to start from scratch.
Bombardier already has 177 orders for the new jet, with a target of 300 by the time it enters service, by the end of 2014, according to the firm. It's also looking at airlines which are likely to be updating aging fleets over the next 2 decades, something Bombardier hopes will earn it up to half the market in medium-range aircraft.
Luke Schrago reporting there. Well, let's get some more of the day's company news now. And the French food maker Danone is the latest company to be caught up in bribery charges in China. Allegations were made in a TV documentary against its Chinese subsidiary Dumex. The programme alleged that Chinese hospital officials were bribed to give its baby formula to newborns. Well, Dumex has launched an investigation into those charges.
France's national rail operator SNCF is one of 3 companies interested in taking over the Greek railways, Romania's Grand Pit Group, and Russia's railway company, the other 2 bidders. The Greek railway network is one of the several state assets up for sale. Athens needs to raise €1.6 billion from privatisations this year as part of the conditions of its bailout.
And the worst polluting cars could get more expensive here in France. That's according to the French business daily Les Echos. A government-run scheme could charge up to €8,000 extra for cars with the worst CO2 levels. That's an increase from the current €6,000 upper limit.
Okie dokie, let's move on to the markets this Tuesday.
Yes, let's take a look. There's an air of caution as investors wait to see what the Federal Reserve is going to do about its $85 billion bond buying programme. The wide expectation is they're going to start easing back on that €10 billion a month. Seems the consensus. This is what the markets are doing. All down, as you can see, in Asia. Meanwhile, a word on inflation in India. It's on the rise there, and one of the main culprits is the simple onion, and that's the reason the price of the onion is up 245% in a year, and it's a staple, of course, in Indian cuisine, as any good lover of curry and other good Indian food would know. Now, this is helping push inflation up. It's now at 6.1% for the month of August. And onions are, in fact, a very serious matter in India. Because in the past they've been responsible, it's claimed, for bringing down 2 governments' onion shortages at least. Now this all presents more challenges for the new central bank governor there, Raghuram Rajan, who we can see on the screen there. Now he says that he's focusing on controlling inflation, and that's just one of the challenges as India, of course, struggles with its slowing economy and a weakening currency. On the subject of onions, the government is trying to do something about it by importing them from Egypt, in fact, to try and help.
Onions in India, pork belly, I think it is in the United States.
That's
Talking
right.
of which, the rich in the US are just getting richer.
That's right. They can afford a lot more onions and pork belly. The 400 richest, according to Forbes, got about 16% wealthier in the last year. And that compares to a 1% increase for average Americans. And if you add the wealth of all of them together, it equals about $2 trillion. That's the same as the GDP of Russia or Italy. Now, the richest person on the list is Bill Gates. States, and he, in fact, is the richest person for the last 20 years running. That's despite giving away about $30 billion to his charity foundation.
Matthew Warren, thank you very much for that roundup of the business news. Time now for web news.
Homes and businesses submerged by the floods. Cracks in the road, some have even collapsed, and people trying to wade through the water. Residents from Boulder, Colorado have been sharing their experiences of the deadly flooding following days of heavy rain in the region. A state of emergency has been declared in the Western American state, and as we can see from these photos posted online by the National Guard, soldiers have been sent in to assist with disaster relief and search and rescue operations for the hundreds of people still reported missing in areas that have been cut off from the rest of the world by rising floodwaters and in many cases without electricity. And for residents still with internet access, Google has produced an interactive map providing real-time updates on the weather, the road conditions, and also the locations of the various hostels set up for flood victims. A number of online initiatives are now underway to help those affected by the flooding. On the site recovers.org, web users can help the relief effort by donating money or basic necessities, which will then be handed over to the relevant authorities, NGOs, and local churches. Quebec's government unveiled its proposed Charter of Quebec Values last week, and the measure, which seeks to ban public workers in the mainly French-speaking Canadian province from wearing religious headwear, has been met with strong resistance. Critics say it's discriminatory, and many have taken to the web and to the streets to voice their opposition. As we can see in these pieces of amateur video footage filmed in various cities across Quebec this weekend, and in Montreal in particular, people from all faiths took part in rallies to protest against the controversial law and call on the authorities to show greater religious tolerance. Opponents of the project are also sharing their concerns on social networks, worried about the impact the measure will have if enacted. Web users are saying that the Parti Québécois government's proposal to ban public employees from wearing religious symbols during work hours could have dramatic consequences for the Canadian province's economy, as it could well prompt numerous skilled workers like doctors or teachers to move to an area that they feel has more respect for their faith and for religious freedoms. And if this poster is anything to go by, then it would seem there's already some truth to this scenario. The advert was produced by an Ontario hospital to lure Quebec doctors to the neighbouring province with the message, "We don't care what's on your head, we care what's in it." Twitter users have been posting under the hashtag Putin for Peace, saying Vladimir Putin should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. They say that by negotiating an agreement with Washington on securing Syria's chemical weapons arsenal, the Russian president has saved the world from a serious international crisis and should be rewarded for his actions. Not everyone shares this opinion, however, far from it. In fact, many have taken to social networks saying Russia is regularly guilty of human rights violations and its leader is not worthy of the prestigious award. Web users can now explore the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador with Google Street View, a virtual visit during which you can discover the island's flora and fauna on land and underwater. A project set up in honour of the 178th anniversary of Charles Darwin arriving on the islands for the very first time, and which hopes to help with research on the ecosystem there. Here we see some of Argentine footballer Lionel Messi's greatest moments depicted in a flip book. This short YouTube video was put together by Etoilec One and is an original way of paying tribute to Messi, who plays for Barcelona, and will no doubt be a huge hit with football fans everywhere.
Assistència de Xavi, més capradeta per a Messi, 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 immens Messi, encara 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 Messi.
That was web news coming up after a very short break. Why did he do it? America looks for a motive in the wake of yet another shooting rampage. Then Asia Live will be off to Naypyidaw, the new Burmese capital that sprung up from the tropical forest.